Welcome to Awe Studio and this video guide of demonstrating the removal of the tape. I'm going to show you how to take a veil painting off the board and how to get the tape off without ruining the picture. Now this veil painting isn't 100% finished. I'm still going to work on it somewhat. But I think what I'll do, since I'm only doing very small veils, I'll just be able to put some clips onto the paper and hold it on that way. So let's get started in showing you how to take it off. For this technique of taking the paper off the board, you're going to need clean water and a clean brush, preferably one that's pretty wide. You'll probably also want a sponge and a rag. But that is the second part of what we do. First, we have to get the veil painting off the board. Now you see that it's coming off already in some places. So I can just gently lift and pull the painting off this way. If it's attached on the back like this, you need to peel that up first. Okay? And then we're just going to lift the veil painting off. If your tape was not stuck onto the paper very well, and this can happen a lot with novice veil painters, then you'll be able to just pull the tape off quite easily. But as you can see, I got mine stuck on pretty well. There might be places where it's not holding as tight. But if that is the case, that it is tight, here's what you do. So what I do is I pull the tape off of the veil painting and I pull away from the picture like this. Now, I'm not going to be able to get every bit of tape off this way because it's stuck on with glue. But what I have to do is be careful that I don't, number one, rip into the painting, and number two, I have to be careful that I don't tear too much of the fabric of the paper here on the edges and make holes in the outside. This is going to be in a frame supposedly, so it wouldn't show, but you still don't want to ruin the outside edges. And you won't be able to get off all the tape this way. That's why we use the wetting method, where you take water on a brush and you wet along the surface here. If I were to leave the whole tape on and just try to do this without removing some of the tape, I would risk getting bleeding of water into the veil painting itself. So I want to remove as much of the tape first as possible. And then I put this water on. Be careful that it doesn't just blob into the painting, but only put the water on the tape. And you can see here that the tape is actually still attached, see? But what you're going to do is wet it thoroughly with clean water, like this, and let it soak for 5 minutes. 5 minutes is not a hard and fast rule, but you need several minutes for the glue to get reactivated, and then you'll be able to scrape away the tape. The reason we put tape on to begin with and stretch watercolor paper is so that we can get a nice flat surface when we're wetting the painting with watercolor, so that it makes a nice taut surface that we can paint on. Otherwise you get a lot of ripples in the painting and it's very hard to get flat surfaces, particularly with veil painting, if you're not working with a flat surface to begin with. And veil painting is a technique that utilizes flat veils of watercolor. And another nice thing about doing the stretching of the tape is that when you remove the tape, you have a nice clean border. And that looks beautiful. So once I've put this on and thoroughly wet the picture on the edges, I'm going to let it sit for a few minutes while the tape activates, and then I'll be able to easily peel off the residue. Here's a wet on wet, which I painted and was not stretched because it was just laid on the board with this thoroughly soaked paper. And you can see that it's a little bit ripply. It's not a perfectly flat surface. And this is what happens when you don't tape down your watercolors. And you can't do taping with wet on wet because you're wetting all the sides so much. But in this case where we're doing veil painting, or if you were doing a traditional watercolor, you could definitely stretch the paper and tape it down so that you would get a nice flat hot surface on which you can paint. Now, to remove the tape, it would be helpful if you had a flat palette knife like this, but if not, you can just use a butter knife. And you want to get up under one of the places that's already starting to come off and just peel away. Again, notice how I'm peeling away from the painting, not towards the actual painted surface. And once you have a wet enough tape, you will see that the glue gets reactivated and you can just peel it off. I just slide the palette knife or the butter knife underneath. You can even take your fingers and peel like that. But sometimes you need to get underneath the surface of the tape. And sometimes you're going to find that the paint has bled underneath the tape, such as over here on the purple. There's nothing you can do about that. It just simply got underneath there. Maybe the tape wasn't stuck on as well as it should have been to begin with. After you remove all the tape, then get yourself a clean rag or a surface that is clean and dry off the excess water so that that doesn't go into the picture. You do want to get off as much of the tape as you possibly can, because if you're leaving any residue, that glue is going to leach eventually into your painting, and that's going to cause some disruption to the surface of your painting. So try to get all the residue of the tape and glue off by wiping at the end and making sure that everything's off. I just want to reiterate that I have taken my painting off the board now a little bit early. In other words, I'm not completely done. I did this for demonstration purposes for you. But when you're veil painting, it's preferable to be all the way finished with the painting before you remove any of the tape or take it off the board. Now, say you did take your painting off the board and some weeks later you were looking at it and you were like, I really want to do a few more veils. Then here's a hack that you can use. You can take some bulldog clips and you can just clip down the painting. These are very tight onto the board on all sides, and then you'll be able to do some small veils and it'll still have a slight stretching quality.